In the annals of Indian constitutional law, few cases resonate with the same enduring significance as Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. This was not merely another legal dispute, it was a profound confrontation over the very soul of India's constitution. The case, which unfolded in 1973, brought to the forefront a fundamental question that had simmered for decades. Was the Indian Parliament's power to amend the constitution absolute and limitless, or were there certain core principles, certain foundational pillars, beyond the reach of any legislative majority? The outcome would redefine the relationship between Parliament and the judiciary and alter the course of Indian democracy. The case was initiated by His Holiness Kesavananda Bharati, the head of a Hindu monastery in Kerala. The monastery's property rights were threatened by two state land reform acts. While the case began as a challenge to specific laws, it quickly evolved into a far broader examination of Parliament's amending powers. The legal team seized an opportunity to revisit Golanath, which had held that Parliament could not amend fundamental rights. The government argued instead for nearly absolute authority to change any part of the constitution. They said that power was essential for enacting social and economic reforms. The nation watched as the matter reached the Supreme Court, a historic showdown unlike any before. The proceedings were extraordinary in scale and duration. A special bench of 13 judges, the largest ever, was assembled to hear the matter. Brilliant legal minds presented meticulously crafted arguments. The debate ranged across constitutional theory and political philosophy. At stake was whether amendments could dismantle the Constitution's fundamental framework. The primary question before the 13-judge bench was deceptively simple, yet profoundly complex. Does Parliament's power under Article 368 extend to altering the Constitution's fundamental features? The central text was Article 368, the amending power. This question built on decades of legislative and judicial tussles. It was the culmination of a long-standing tussle between legislature and judiciary. The legislature pushed socialist policies. The judiciary guarded fundamental rights. The government maintained that amendment power included the power to add, repeal, or change any provision. They argued that an elected parliament represented the will of the people and should not be constrained. If unchecked, Parliament could repeal rights without effective remedy. The petitioners, led by Nani Palkhivala, countered that the word amend did not mean destroy. Parliament could adapt the Constitution, but not use amendment to abrogate its core identity. To destroy the core would be to dismantle the Constitution itself. This produced a legal conundrum. Were there implied limits on amendment power? Article 368's text did not explicitly state limits. Petitioners argued limitations were inherent in the Constitution's structure and spirit. The Constitution is a living document whose philosophy cannot be subverted through amendments. The petitioners urged a protective boundary to preserve core values. The stage was set for a judgment that would either affirm parliamentary freedom or constitutional sanctity. After months of deliberation, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict on April 24, 1973. It was a finely balanced judgment, judicial craftsmanship at work. By a narrow majority of 7-6, the court reached a delicate balance. The court held that Parliament could amend any part of the Constitution, including fundamental rights, but the power was not absolute. Parliament could not use amendment to damage or destroy the Constitution's basic structure. This resolution became known as the Basic Structure Doctrine. The doctrine drew a line in the sand, a boundary the legislature could not cross. The court reasoned amendment is not power to abrogate or replace the Constitution. Any amendment must leave the basic framework and identity intact. Parliament could amend election laws to improve fairness, but could not amend the Constitution to replace democracy with a monarchy or dictatorship. The essence: protect the soul of the Constitution from a temporary legislative majority. The court intentionally refrained from a closed list of basic structure features. This left the doctrine flexible, able to evolve as new threats emerged. The judiciary retained authority to test future amendments case by case. The majority identified several features as part of the basic structure. These included supremacy of the Constitution, Republican and democratic government, secularism, separation of powers, and federal character. The verdict declared these elements sacrosanct and beyond Parliament's amending reach. The immediate impact was to reassert the supremacy of the Constitution. No institution, not Parliament, not the executive, stood above the Constitution. The verdict curbed Parliament's ability to enact sweeping changes that could undermine democracy. Parliament retained amendment power, but could not abrogate fundamental rights if they formed part of the basic structure. The court overturned Golanath in part, allowing amendments but subjecting them to basic structure scrutiny. A right could be modified for social good, but core essence could not be destroyed. The ruling elevated the preamble as an interpretive key to core values. Its legacy played out in decades that followed, shaping constitutional conflicts. During the emergency, Parliament passed the 42nd Amendment seeking sweeping powers. Later, in Minerva Mills, the court used the basic structure doctrine to strike down those excesses. Judicial review and the limited amending power themselves were held to be part of the basic structure. The doctrine served as a bulwark against authoritarian tendencies and legislative overreach. The judgment remains a cornerstone of India's constitutional democracy. It ensured the foundational principles of liberty, equality, and justice would endure. The court performed its role as guardian of the Constitution with foresight and courage. The doctrine ensured the Constitution would remain a living, breathing document, able to evolve but protected from mutilation. By safeguarding rights and democratic structures, the judgment protected the nation's future. The basic structure doctrine remains a shield for Indian democracy for generations to come.